World War I, one of the most bloodiest conflicts in all of history. The victors, France, Britain, Italy, and America. The defeated, Germany, Russia, the Ottoman Empire, and Austria-Hungary. These countries came together in Paris on January 1919 to meet one final time in an event called the Paris Peace Conference, before they would officially end the war.
Coming into the Paris Peace Conference, many countries came with different mindsets pertaining to power distribution and Germany. The arguments that occurred led to a shaky resolution that satisfied no one. It led to the frustration of German citizens and other countries that, in turn, brought a Second World War.
Many countries attended the Paris Peace Conference. They would find themselves sorely disappointed if they expected their conditions to be met. Germany and Russia were excluded from all of this. There were four main countries who controlled the conference: Britain, France, America, and Italy, the Big Four. Let's look into the Big Four's hidden agendas.
Representing Britain was David Lloyd George, who at that time was the Prime Minister of Great Britain. As a politician, he pretended to go along with the sentiments of his people, which was punish Germany, but he didn't really mean it. He didn't want to treat them too harshly, as David predicted trouble would brew. In secret, he wanted to keep Germany in a good enough state to prevent the rise of communism by letting them recover, but in a bad enough state to not turn into a communist nation themselves. Should communism spread to the West, Germany would be the first line of defense. Of course, everything's not about Germany. Britain also wanted to make sure France did not take the Rhineland. Britain, of course, also wanted to expand their empire by increasing trade and, most importantly, making sure they controlled the seas.
As for France, at the time, the Prime Minister of France, Georges Clemenceau, aimed to strengthen his army while the German army was weakened. Georges even spoke against the U.S., claiming that the U.S. had protection and France did not, and France wanted to take justice into their own hands. Punishment for Germany was demanded, but Georges made his justice seem more like vengeance than a civilized punishment. Since France suffered a massive amount of damage on the northern end, France asked for the demilitarization of Rhineland.
Representing America was the American president at the time, Woodrow Wilson. He believed that the treaty that Britain and France were creating was too aggressive towards Germany. Along with his opinion on the treaty, Woodrow Wilson wanted to create an organization called the League of Nations that would deal with political problems such as that of the Treaty of Versailles.
Connected to the Big Three and part of the Big Four was Italy. Italy's Prime Minister Vittorio Orlando was a representative. Although Italy was considered one of the four main countries controlling the Paris Peace Conference, in actuality, they were left on the sidelines often and just tagged along, hence why they're only connected to the Big Three. This was due to their previous association to the Triple Alliance. This included Germany and Austria-Hungary, who were part of the opposing side. In addition, Italy played insignificant roles in the war. Despite this, coming into the conference, they expected land along the Adriatic coast. Why? Upon joining the Allies, Italy made a deal with France and Britain in which, should the Allies prove victorious, Italy would gain portions of the Adriatic coast.
The Big Four, for all their fighting, finally settled on a shaky treaty, the Versailles Peace Treaty. Some of their conditions were met and some weren't. Germany, who wasn't even included in the conference, was affected the most. Here is a look into the Big Four's reactions.
Britain lost 750,000 soldiers, with 1,500,000 soldiers left wounded. Despite this, they were left fairly content with the treaty. Britain advertised the fact that Britain would no longer threaten world peace, and the citizens were left happy despite the fact that they wanted even more punishment. In addition, Britain maintained control of the seas since Germany's navy was reduced, and Britain got a bigger empire as they were given some of Germany's colonies. David George himself was disappointed because he felt that the League of Nations was a horrible idea, and putting all those laws on Germany would lead to a future war. He had fought for Germany's interests during the conference.
France ended up signing the treaty and became active in the League of Nations. France did not completely get what they had originally demanded for. It hurt France and Georges politically. Not only was Georges damaged, he was also defeated and lost his presidency in 1920.
The American citizens did not like the idea of America being a part of the League of Nations. They believed that if America became part of the League of Nations, that it would pull America into European conflicts, which is exactly what most of her citizens did not want. This led to America becoming isolated from European conflicts for the years to come, until the conflict known as World War II.
Italy sacrificed 600,000 soldiers for the Allies. What they expected was a promise kept. Remember France's and Britain's promise of the Adriatic coast? Well, it was only kind of fulfilled. Italy was given the two small areas of Istria and the South Tyrol. The Adriatic coast was made part of a new country called Yugoslavia, which included Serbia and Bosnia. From the sideline jobs to the unfulfilled promise, Italy was left pissed after their treatment at the Paris Peace Conference.
Not everything revolved around the Big Four, though. The treaty also affected other countries, especially Germany.
It wasn't hard to see why Germans weren't happy about the Treaty of Versailles, since Germany lost 10% of its land, all of their overseas colonies, 12.5% of its population, 16% of its coal, and 48% of its iron industry. Germany also had to accept blame for the war, change their armed forces to an amount of 100,000 men, and they had to pay reparations. The reactions to the Treaty of Versailles in Germany were very bad, especially since they lost the war. There were protests in the German parliament and protests out on the streets. Germany thought the treaty was unfair, and the soldiers sent to sign it refused to, with him quoted as saying, "To say such a thing would be."
Overall, many countries were left pissed off or barely satisfied at the results of World War I. The destruction shed on those years could not pay back what each country lost. The arguments from the Big Four led to a treaty that tried to cover the wants of everyone involved. This was the first time so many countries were involved and no one ended up happy. The treaty ended up tearing only 25 years in another war, World War II.